Hey guys, Trey Mitchell, and I've got another Duck and Bone Devo for you today. And I want to talk a little bit about the concept of running to Jesus. Now, I grew up playing sports. I've been an athlete for the better portion of my life, and that obviously included a lot of running, which I didn't necessarily enjoy. As a matter of fact, I actually hated running, but I did get conned one year into running cross country when I was in high school, and I just really didn't enjoy the experience of it. So you people that just run for recreation, more power to you. That's just not necessarily my cup of tea. But all throughout Scripture, we see our walk with Christ being compared to running a race. And when I was running cross country, anything that I could do, any tip that I could pick up on to make the running less painful and to make me more efficient as a runner, I was more than willing to implement to make me better when it came to race time. So I want to talk about this whole concept today of running to Jesus and talk about some things that can help us become better runners in this race of faith that we're in. So if you look in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 4 is kind of where we're going to be at. You begin to see some things, some concepts that Scripture gives us that can help us to become better runners. And the first one is this: get rid of extra weight. In Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 1, the first half of the verse there, the writer of Hebrews says, "Let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely." And there are a couple of things that need to be done in relation to running if we're going to be efficient and effective as runners for Christ in the faith race that He has placed us in. The first one is we need to lay aside every weight. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a sin. The writer says, let us lay aside every weight and sin. So there may be some things in our lives, some extra weight in our lives that are preventing us from running a good race. And that might be that your schedule is just too busy. It might be that you're spending too much energy on things that don't carry with them enough eternal value. And I'm guilty of doing those things myself, but it's not necessarily a sin. It's just extra weight that could be gotten rid of. But then it is also good to make sure that we lay aside the sin in our life, because that can hinder and hurt you as you try to run this race that Christ has placed us in and be an example for Him to others around us. So when we think about getting rid of extra weight, it's not that we necessarily need to ask, is what I'm doing a sin? Maybe a better question to ask would be, does it help me run? And if it doesn't help you run to Jesus, then it needs to be set aside. Anything that gets in the way of our running to Him needs to be placed aside. So what kind of extra weight maybe do you need to get rid of in your life? And the second thing is that can help us become better at running is to keep a steady pace. I had a buddy when we were running, he would sprint for a few yards and then he'd walk, and then he'd sprint for a few yards and then he would walk. And it's just a constant up and down pace that he had, and he never would finish all that well in the races. So it's always important to understand that you just need to find a good steady pace and do your best to keep that pace. And in Hebrews chapter 12, in the second half of verse 1, the writer says, let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. So in other words, this race is not necessarily going to be over quickly. It's not a sprint. It's more compared to being a marathon. And running towards Jesus is going to require endurance. It's not always going to be easy. There are going to be obstacles that you face, and keeping a steady pace in our pursuit of Christ is going to require endurance, but it also requires discipline as well. So don't let other things or people hinder your running. Paul said in Galatians chapter 5 and verse 7, you're running well, who hindered you from obeying the truth. So there are things, there are situations, there are people even sometimes that can mess up the pace that we have when it comes to running towards Christ. So find a good steady pace and keep that pace running after Him. And the third thing is fix your eyes. That was always important. My coach told me when we were running our races to fix your eyes on target in front of you and then run to it. And after you ran to that target, pick out another target, fix your eyes on it, and run to it. And it could be a tree, could be a bush, could be a sign, it could be the person running in front of you. But whatever it was, you fixed your eyes on that point and you ran towards it. And in the writer in Hebrews in verses 2 and verse 3, chapter 12 says, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith. So we look to Him, we fix our eyes on Jesus. If we're going to run towards Him, then we have to keep our eyes on Him. And when we look to Jesus, we also see the cross that He endured for our sake, not just our sake, for the world. So who are your eyes fixed on? And if they're fixed on anything or anybody other than Christ, then it's going to hinder your ability to run efficiently and effectively for Him. And then one last thing that the writer of Hebrews encourages us to do in this race is to push yourself. Verse 12 says, therefore, lift your drooping hands and strengthen your weak knees. It's going to be hard. Those races that I ran, there were times when my legs wanted to give out. Some mornings it'd be cold, my lungs would be burning, and I just wanted to give up and not finish the race. But you would be surprised how much you can accomplish when you push your body and set your mind on completing the task. And it's no different in our faith with Christ and in our walk with Him. You'd be surprised how far He can carry you when you're unable to carry yourself. So push yourself, even when it gets hard. Keep pushing, keep your eyes fixed on Him. Our main hurdle to running to Jesus most times is always going to be our sinful nature. So if you can push yourself through that, if you fix your eyes on Him, you keep a steady pace and get rid of all the extra weight, I promise you it will improve you as a runner in your faith for Christ. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little devotion. I pray that it ministers to you in your life throughout this day. Fix your eyes on Him and run towards Him. I hope you guys are blessed. Thanks for tuning in.